Good evening and welcome to day 11 of the 100 Days of Shakespeare. Tonight, I'm really pleased to be back and bringing you a little bit more information about the lifetimes and world of Shakespeare. This is part of a 100 Days of Shakespeare event started by Carolina Furman, part of the Society for Creative Anachronism. So if you are interested in digging into Shakespeare a little bit more, then you will find a number of resources over on the Facebook group, which I will link up in the description below. So thanks very much for joining me here. And tonight we're going to cover off something very briefly. Again, this is just brief coverage of a topic, hopefully to inspire you to go and dig into this a little bit more yourself, just to give you a bit of an overview of some of the mindset and the worldview of the Elizabethan period in which Shakespeare was writing. And then when you understand this and you see this, you'll start to pick up references to it in the plays as you read them. So tonight, what we are talking about is, and I'll just pull this up, and nope, there it is. Yes, the Humours. So the Humours are a concept that was actually started. Well, let's actually go back. Sorry, it's the Humours is a word driven from humon, meaning liquid, from ancient Greek. And the concept of the Humours was first formed by Hippocrates in 5 BC, and later developed further by Claudius Galen in 129 AD. And Claudius Galen was a physician in the gladiatorial, for the gladiators, essentially, in Rome. So he took this idea even further, and it's a concept that survived all the way through till the Elizabethan and Jacobean period. So what is it? Well, it's a concept that kind of connects the human condition to the planets and the seasons, and the liquids in our body represent essentially personality types. And so there you go. So it's connected to planets, or organs of the body, liquids in the body specifically, elements, seasons, and affected your personality. And so there are 4 humours: sanguine, choleric, melancholy, and phlegmatic. And you may hear someone say, "Oh, that person's a bit phlegmatic," or melancholy. You hear references to characters in Shakespeare's plays being melancholic and being I feel melancholy. This is what they're referring to, this concept of the humours. And so there is a concept that goes along with it, that is, if you are too much of one humour, your life is out of balance. And it was this idea that you wanted to balance your humours. Now, this concept also bled across into medieval cooking, and we'll touch on that a little bit after I give you a summary on all 4 of them. So what I'm going to do is just give you a quick summary and a little bit of a list for each one of these 4 humours about those things that it's connected to, and just read you a paragraph after that. I'm just going to try and pop my notes up here so I can see them better. Just read you a paragraph after that relates to cooking and how it affected the thinking around cooking. So let's get into it. So the first one that we'll look at is sanguine. And so the personality of someone who is sanguine is said to be amorous and happy. What have we got? Generous, optimistic, irresponsible. So, pretty happy-go-lucky, really great kind of personality. The sort of person you'd love to hang around with. They're a lot of fun. The qualities are hot and moist. So if you think about, if you're sick and you have a fever that's making you sweat, then you might be sanguine. It might hot and moist. You are hot, but you're sweating, so you're hot and moist. And the body substance, which is actually 4th on this list, is blood, and so the blood is connected to the sanguine personality. So if you have a fever and you are hot and moist because you're sweating, you might be said to have too much blood, and so therefore they would try and balance that from a physician's point of view, of either removing blood, reducing blood, or balancing it out with the opposite, which is one of the other humours, to try and balance your humours so that you could get better. The element was air, so each one of these was also connected to one of the elements. So Sanguine's element is air, and the Sanguine is produced by the liver, the blood is the liquid, the planet is Venus, and the season that it's connected to is spring. So these are the sorts of things that if you you look through the plays and you're seeing references to any of those things, you know that there's this sense that this person is a sanguine person, or their personality is sanguine. They're made up in that sort of sanguine mindset. Second one, choleric. So this is violent, vengeful, ambitious, short-tempered, that sort of thing. So really kind of hot-tempered type of people are considered to be choleric. And so they are hot and dry. So you can imagine that would be fire. Yeah, the element is fire. So, they are hot-headed, when we sort of talk about them. This is produced by the spleen, and the liquid, the body substance or the liquid, is yellow bile. And so if you hear anyone talking about the bile, there's two biles, there's yellow bile and black bile. We'll talk about the black bile soon. And so you can kind of pick which humour it is based on some of the other dialogue around it. The planet is Mars, and the season is summer. The next one, phlegmatic. So phlegmatic people are really kind of sluggish and cowardly, Capitanos from the Commedia dell'arte type thing. Sir Andrew Aguecheek would probably be considered a phlegmatic person. Qualities are cold and moist. So, obviously then related to winter. So the element is water, produced by the lungs. The body substance is phlegm, obviously. The planet is the moon. And again, we're talking winter, which makes sense when you're talking cold and moist, particularly in England. And the final one is melancholic. So melancholic people are introspective, sentimental, gluttonous. So you would think someone like Falstaff falls into this. Their qualities are cold and dry. So this is what I was talking before. If you had too much blood and you were hot and moist, well, they might try and find a way to introduce more black bile into your system, or balance you out that way, because the cold and dry would balance out the hot and moist. The element is the earth. It's produced by the gallbladder. Again, it's the black bile. The planet is Saturn, and the season it relates to is autumn. So they're the four humours in a very, very brief, quick rundown of that. So when how this relates to cooking is really nicely kind of shaped out by this particular statement, and so I'll read this for you. The following quote explains the effect of the humours on food preparation. Game meat was considered slightly dry, and therefore often prepared with lard. Predictably considered moist. Fish and waterfowl, on the other hand, were frequently cooked in wine, so that their cold and moist tendencies might be rendered more palatable by the warm and dry properties of the wine. So again, we're seeing this chain of being kind of connected through this as well. And if you're not sure what the chain of being is, I'll link up one of the other videos that I've done in this series that talk briefly about the chain of being and the Elizabethan world picture. So when we think about a good roast beef that is hot, dry, well, we might partner that with a good mustard that is moist to balance out that texture. And so, the idea of having something sweet for dessert comes from this concept of balancing your palate and balancing the humours, so that you would have something, that was, dry and savoury, and you'd balance it out with something that was sweet. So this sense of balancing your humours across a meal. So really, really quick rundown there for you of the humours. These references you'll find in Shakespeare's plays, and you'll hear them talked about. You'll hear Shakespeare reference things like phlegm and bile and these kinds of liquids, and this is what he's referring to, is this sense of the statement and the condition of a human within the sense of that. So that's it. Really quick rundown tonight. Didn't want to go too deep into it. Just from a time point of view, this is 100 days. We're pushing to get this stuff pulled together pretty quick. So these are very brief summaries. I may do some deeper videos about this further down the track and really dig in hard. These are just designed to give you a quick bite, to give you a starting point to know what you're looking for, to go out and continue doing some of this research yourself. So I hope that was of use to you. If you got something out of this, it would be amazing if you could give this video a like, of course, subscribe to the channel. Most importantly though, if you got something useful out of this, there's a good chance you'll know somebody else who does, or who could use it as well. So please share it with them. Tag them in the comments, whatever you've got to do to pay it forward, so we can just keep helping each other out, because there is room for us all to succeed. We've just got to help each other out. So do that. That would be great. And of course, I encourage you to check out one of the other videos in this series, which will pop up on the screen once I'm done here. So thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you on the